Welcome to the informational webinar for the Learning Through Languages High School Research Symposium. This is a partnership between the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction and our partners at UNC Global. To get us started, I want to make sure everyone knows where their Webex event control panel is. We are using Webex event as our webinar broadcast. And you should have up on the screen the screenshot, and then to your right, a note about who's speaking. And my name is Anne-Marie Gunter, the World Languages Consultant at the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. So you see my initials up there. Also on your control panel, you should have other components. So keep in mind, Webex is accessible via computer or app. And so what you see on screen there may look a little bit different on your screen depending on if you've chosen a laptop or a smart device to join us today. All participants are on mute to facilitate the recording. We are recording this broadcast so we can post it and you can access it later as you need to. And then we have on the control panel several different components that you may use. I mentioned that you know who the host or speaker is by the initials that are there on your control panel. We'll also do some polling questions, and you should have a Q&A or question and answer box always visible to you. We do have guest speakers, of course, for this broadcast today, so I will be monitoring the Q&A, and they'll also have time for questions and things within the broadcast. Also, don't forget you have a series of buttons on the bottom of your screen. I'm just popping them out so they're a little bit larger. To access the Q&A box, you can always hit that blue button with the question mark on it. That'll take you right to it. On the black button to the right with the three little dots, if there are other components you want to reach, you can click on that and it'll take you to it. And then that orange button on the far right is what you hit when we're all done today and you want to exit the webinar. So that's kind of how our control panels work. Let's do a quick sound check. If you've been hearing me make these announcements and getting us started, please go ahead and raise your electronic hand or type something into the Q&A box so that we can see it and make sure that you're hearing this. All right, very good. I think we're all set. So first things first, and we also want to make sure you know how to use the polling feature in your control panel. Why did you join the broadcast today? So what are your goals? And you can check all that apply here. Did you want to find out more about the Learning Through Languages High School Research Symposium? Did you want to earn one contact hour for a license renewal? Did you want to gather information to share with a department, a team, or some other group? Did you want to learn about changes to the virtual 2020 LtL competition? Or did you need to ask a question about LtL or maybe UNC Global in general? I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll, and it'll come up in your control panel so that you can respond to it. Give me one moment as we work out some behind the scenes things. There we go. The poll is open. Please go ahead and check all that apply for why you decided to join us today for this broadcast. We have about 10 seconds left. Be sure you get your answers in. Part of the setup in Webex is, of course, that you participate actively in order to earn your one contact hour for license renewal, and also that we know what your reasons are for today so that we can make sure we address your needs. All right. I'm going to go ahead and show the poll results to you too. Again, they'll appear in your control panel so that you can see them. It looks like people are here for a whole variety of reasons. Some are here to find out more about the competition and gather information to share back. Several are here to learn about the changes this year. LtL is going fully virtual, and so that's an exciting change, and one I think that we've been getting ourselves accustomed to this school year and even before. Also, some of you are here to earn a contact hour, and I will tell you, after our broadcast is through today, we'll download the attendance list and process those applications for that. If you've earned your contact hour, you will get an email with a certificate attached to it specifying that information to use. You should get that email within about 2 weeks, so it's coming soon. For those of you who are here to gather information and want to share that, please know that all of these slides that you're seeing today will be posted on our World Languages website on the webinar information page. And you can access them as Google Slides, as PowerPoint slides, and as PDFs so that you can easily use them or adapt them for any kinds of meetings or presentations that you have. All right, I think we're good to go on that. Thank you for sharing why you're here today. And we're going to go ahead and move on. All right, today's agenda is pretty straightforward. After we finish our welcome, then I'm going to turn it over to Allison and Emma from UNC Global to talk about the Learning Through Languages competition. They're going to go over the overview and objectives, the student team activities and the research project, the symposium structure, and especially those 2020 virtual updates that everyone needs to know about. They'll also talk a little bit about the resources that are available and then how to apply for your team. After that, we'll wrap it up. So, as I said, we have 2 guest speakers today. They are from the UNC Area Studies Centers. You can see their titles on there, and they come from 2 different Area Studies Centers that are all part of UNC Global. So I will turn it over to them as presenters, and they can tell you more about their role and about the competition.
Hi, everyone. My name is Allison Haskins, and I am the Outreach Coordinator, also known as the International Education Program Coordinator for UNC Center for European Studies. We're one of multiple area study centers at UNC. We have the NRC National Resource Center grant, which helps us to do community outreach with K-12 teachers, community college faculty, MSI faculty. And so LtL is one of the ways that we reach out to teachers and students in the state and talk about our specific areas of interest. So for me, that's contemporary Europe, and also to talk about language learning for students. All right, Emma, I'll turn it to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emma Harber, and I am the Director of Outreach for the Duke UNC Consortium for Middle East Studies. Similarly, as Alice has mentioned, we have a grant to provide resources and trainings for teachers and students across North Carolina and beyond, really, to get engaged in Middle East studies and better understand the region. I've been in this position for almost 6 years and have been part of Learning Through Languages for several years. And we're really excited to have you all with us this year. If you're a new teacher interested in participating, or if you've participated in the past, we have a lot of exciting updates and changes to share with you as we adapt Learning Through Languages to a pandemic-friendly model.
Yes, indeed. Anne-Marie, can I go ahead and start sharing the presentation?
Yes, you should be able to look in your control panel and share your screen.
It's great. The button is grayed out.
Give me just a moment then. Let's see what we need to switch around. I think I made Emma the presenter before. Let me switch that over to you. That's our technical problem. There you go. Now you should have the control panel.
Very good. Okay. All right, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and jump into our 6th edition of LtL, of Learning Through Languages. This presentation will go through all the, basically everything A to Z about LtL. If you have any questions, please feel free to write them in the chat as we go. Also, we'll have a time at the end for questions. And we'll try to answer everything we can as well about the changes. So if you have any questions about that as well, please feel free to ask that. But yeah, so Learning Through Languages, this is our 6th edition this year, and it is a collaboration of the different area study centers at UNC. So along with the Center for European Studies and the Duke UNC Consortium for Middle East Studies. We do this with the African Studies Center, the Carolina Asia Center, the Center for Slavic, Eurasian, and East European Studies, and the UNC Duke Consortium in Latin American and Caribbean Studies. I'll show you guys a tour of the website at the very end, but just so you know, all of this information that we're going over can be found at areastudies.unc.edu/LTL. That will give you all the important links you need to have, information about the application, and then as well information about this year's specific, the 2020 Learning Through Languages. So the overview and objectives of the Learning Through Languages Symposium. The LTL it's a unique way for North Carolina world language students to conduct and present preliminary research in their language of study. The idea is that this symposium gives a chance for students to do an extracurricular project where they can research a topic of one of the world areas of interest, so one of our world areas from our centers, in the language that they're learning. So for example, if it's a student learning French, they could do a research project in French, in the French language that they do on a world region. So for example, they might research Africa and then write in French about something they've researched. So they get to learn about a topic of significance to a world region. They get to engage in cooperative learning with a team, and they produce informational writing aimed at a particular audience. So they get to kind of flex their writing skills, which will be useful at a college level. And they'll also receive feedback from UNC and Duke judges about language skills. So these are the main changes. If you've participated in Learning Through Languages before, you'll notice that these are the main changes to Learning Through Languages this year. Because of the safety precautions that we need to take, we're going to be holding this symposium completely online. So everything we do will be virtual. The biggest changes that we can highlight right here are that the sponsoring teachers will be the main point of contact, and they will be submitting all of the materials to judges. The individual students may also make up a single team. So teams this year are allowed to be 1 student to 3 students. So if there's 1 student that wants to participate and they are having trouble doing project work, or they can't find anyone to do it with them, or they find it's easier just to do it as a single student, they're allowed to register as 1 person. They'll still need a sponsoring teacher, however. And that sponsoring teachers will receive this year a $75 stipend in lieu of travel reimbursements. In years before, we've given teachers financial aid to get their students to UNC. This year, we will be offering a $75 stipend to each sponsoring teacher. That is per team as well. So if the teacher is sponsoring 2 teams, they still receive one $75 stipend. And the research paper is shorter. It's now, instead of being a full research paper, it's going to be a short summative briefing. I will describe that a little bit more later. And there will be no oral component at all. The students will only make a presentation on paper, they will make a visual for it, and they will submit it and receive feedback on that. I'll go into a little bit more detail about that as well. Those are the main changes so far.
Allison, can I add something?
Please.
I'd just like to share, that we have thought very carefully about how to adapt the symposium to a virtual environment and considered many, many different formats, and are trying to develop something that will still be meaningful for your students. We recognize that also some of you are having trouble engaging your students at this moment, and everyone is tired of being online. And so with these adaptations, we're hoping that it's easy and encouraging for your students who are interested to still participate. I know that the oral presentation is something that has that's an important part of the symposium, and we thought creatively about how we might still include that component this year. However, in order to comply with our Office for the Protection of Minors, we're not able to offer an oral component. And so we are still really excited that students can receive valuable feedback from judges on their writing and on their creative visual.
Yes, thank you so much, Emma. Just to echo what Emma said, we wanted to make sure that LTL this year still happened, and that students still have the opportunity to do this, but that we also take into account the pandemic that we're all experiencing and the kind of constraints that have put on our lives. Alrighty. Eligibility. So the students that are eligible for Learning Through Languages are students of Arabic, Chinese, French, German, Japanese, Russian, or Spanish. This can also include heritage speakers. So if the student isn't necessarily in a language course but speaks this language as a heritage student, they could apply. They will still need a sponsoring teacher. We recommend that the students are at level 3 or higher, so 3 or 4, which we consider to be intermediate or advanced, levels, and you will notate on the application for the students if it is an intermediate or an advanced student. The teams can be anywhere from 1 student to 3 students working together. Each teacher may sponsor up to 3 teams of students. And then, like I was mentioning before, to ensure that students are judged more accurately on their language ability, the teams will register as either intermediate or advanced proficiency. So intermediate would be that level 3-4, advanced is that level 5 or higher, including AP students and heritage speakers. So we have those 2 categories of students that can register. What will the students do? They are going to write a 1 to 1.5 page informative summative briefing on a topic related to their assigned regional track. So this year, like we had mentioned, we are shortening the project component. In years prior, it was a multi-page research paper. This year, we're having it be an informative summative briefing. This is just a 1 to 1.5 page paper that explains a certain topic, and I'll show you the topics we've come up with. Those are limited as well, where they have to use a little bit of research. They have to incorporate some sources, but all they have to do is kind of explain a situation in a world region. I have an example of this we've had a student make, and if anyone has any questions about the briefing, I'm happy to answer it, but I'll kind of keep talking about it as we go. Along with the briefing, they need to create a project visual to submit to our judges in December, and I'll have the dates for those as well on further slides. There will be no oral component this year. And of course, the summative briefing does have to be in the target language. So if they're a Japanese student, that briefing needs to be in Japanese. The visual as well needs to be fully in that language. So of course, the pictures can be the pictures, but any descriptions or commentary on the visual needs to be in that target language as well. So the research project, we will be assigning regions, world regions. So every student that applies, regardless of the language that they're speaking. So for example, a Japanese team might be assigned Western Europe to write on. A German speaking team might be assigned Asia. So we will be assigning tracks this year, one of these 6 tracks. The research they're doing should be contemporary, so something recent, and they will be able to write a briefing on one of 3 topics, which will help keep it contemporary. Those topics are either social justice and human rights, the COVID-19 impact, or sustainability in the environment. So for example, a team that studies French might apply. We would assign them Middle East and North Africa, and they could write a paper on maybe topic 2, talking about how Turkey has been affected by a lack of tourism due to COVID-19, which was in the news recently. Similarly, a group speaking German could be assigned Asia as a region, and they might choose social justice and human rights and talk about a social justice and human rights topic happening in China. As we mentioned, the briefing is just a short summary report on a certain topic, and then I do have an example briefing I'll show you guys at the end, just so everyone kind of has an idea of what we're asking for.
And I would also just like to add, thanks so much, Allison, that you'll notice if you've participated in the past that we have put a few additional parameters on the topics of research this year. In the past, students were able to choose pretty much any contemporary topic that they were interested in researching. For ease and to accommodate our kind of reduced symposium this year, we are asking that students can select any one of these 3 topics, which are very broad and we hope are of interest to your students. They're also very timely topics that they should be able to find plenty of information and resources on. So hopefully one of these topics your students identify with and are very interested in. And as Allison mentioned, we are assigning a world region for them to research this year for a couple of reasons. One is to expand their interests and tendencies. We might, not be as inspired to research different world regions, but we hope by being assigned a world region that they learn something new, maybe something that they wouldn't have necessarily learned in their language class if it doesn't necessarily correspond with the region that language is spoken in, and that they're learning, about the world through the language of study. So they're also getting a perspective through the language on other parts of the world. And finally, because this helps us comply with our grant funding to have all of these world regions represented in this program. So that's often a question we get, why would I be assigned to a world region? And so those are some of the reasons.
Yes. Thank you very much, Emma. So that is a research project. As we mentioned, the briefing requirements will go here a little bit more in detail. You'll write a short summative briefing, or the team will write on one of these 3 topics. Of course, once again, social justice, human rights, COVID-19 impact, or sustainability in the environment. Students should be using APA style to cite their sources. And the briefing should follow the following formatting requirements, which we've also made language specific as well. As you'll see, Times New Roman for French, German, Russian, and Spanish, and then Arabic, Chinese, and Japanese, we have their own parameters down here. And then the page and word limits do change a little bit with language, but we've all done the math and made sure it's similar requirements. And then the written briefing should contain the following sections. There should be a title page, there should be a main body, and then there should be a references section with the citations in APA style. We ask that students use at least 3 sources. They can be primary or secondary sources, and 2 of these 3 sources must be in the target language. For example, the French team writing about tourism in Turkey, 2 of those 3 sources they use to write their briefing need to be in French. The third one can be in English, and if they end up using 5 or 6 sources, as long as 2 of those sources are in the target language, it's fine. And we ask that they submit the paper as a digital PDF, and this paper needs to be emailed to this Learning Through Languages Gmail account by September 2nd, end of business, so 5 p.m. As I mentioned, the briefing will be accompanied by a visual. So the idea is that they write a briefing on something, if we're using this tourism in Turkey example, and then the visual should complement the briefing. Maybe it has some graphs on it. It could have some images, maybe before after images of resort towns. They could have more information kind of posted. Anything they want to do with this visual, they can do, as long as it complements the briefing. And it should outline or illustrate key aspects of what they're writing about. So the visual can take on one of 3 forms. They can make a PowerPoint, they can make a web page, or they can make a PDF infographic. And we will have on our website, we've had one of our colleagues make a list of resources they can use to make these things. Of course, PowerPoint, you can use Google Slides. Web page, you can also use Google Sites. There's a few other kind of easy to make web page websites. PDF infographic, you could use anywhere from Microsoft Word to Canva. There's a lot of free websites out there for making these visuals. And like I had mentioned, we will put those resources on our website as well. The visual will be judged on both use of language, so use of that target language, as well as creativity and innovation. So judges and judging. We will still be having UNC and Duke faculty, instructional staff, and graduate students judging these. We will have 3 judges per language, and each team will have a judge review, 3 different judges review their project. So they'll have feedback from multiple judges. And the teams will be awarded a rating anywhere 1 through 5, with 1 being the highest rating and 5 being the lowest. This is based on the average of the 3 judges' scores. So if anyone's familiar with maybe how choir or marching band does their scores, we're doing this in a similar way. 1 being superior, that would be anywhere from 100 to 120 points. 2 being excellent, 75 to 99 points. 3 being good, 51 to 74. And then you can see here we have 4 and 5 are fair and poor scores. We do not anticipate that we have to give out any fair or poor scores. Most of the students that apply are very high performing. All the scoring breakdown you can find in our LtL folder, which I'll show you later. We have a full rubric showing what the scoring will look like. We also notice, we would just want to note that our scoring rubric recognizes languageability as well as overall research methodology and creativity. So we try to have kind of a holistic approach to scoring these projects. We will announce the scores on December 9th at 4 p.m. via YouTube Live, and teams will receive the written feedback for their scores by December 11th. Just a few resources I want to highlight for you while you're looking at learning through languages. Maybe your teams are looking at joining the CLAC Consortium at UNC, which is the Cultures and Languages Across the Curriculum movement. It intends to make global competence a reality for students and to create alliances among educators to share practices and find ways to incorporate an international dimension in curricula and more generally to achieve internationalization goals. We also have our UNC Languages Across the Curriculum program. And then Duke has one as well, the Cultures and Languages Across the Curriculum. And then lastly, the APA Style Guide from the Online Writing Lab at Purdue. This is a great style guide for students maybe who aren't familiar with APA and are working on their briefing. How to apply is kind of the big question always. You can apply at areastudies.unc.edu/LTL. That is where the application form is. And in this application, you'll have to describe why the team wants to participate in LTL. The sponsoring teacher has to apply. The student cannot apply. So this is an important kind of note to make note of, that it has to be the teacher doing the application. So an interested student, if they're interested, just make sure they make a connection with a sponsoring teacher. Please complete the application form for each student team that wishes to participate in the symposium. So it doesn't have to be for each participant, but it does have to be for each team. The application deadline is October 16th. We will notify those teams or individuals that are accepted by October 23rd. The project will be due just December 2nd by 5 p.m. We'll announce the scores on December 9th with our YouTube Live. And then teams will receive written feedback from judges by December 11th. So that is the timeline. That is kind of LTL in a nutshell this year. I'll give you a quick tour of our website so that you can see where to find all this information. Give me just 1 second. So if you go to our website over here, if you go to areastudies.unc.edu/LTL, you'll see up here Learning Through Languages High School Research Symposium. And then you'll see that because of COVID-19, we've been everything will be conducted virtually. You can access the team application here, and you can access the participant portal, which I'll show you in a second. This has the program guidelines, the rubric, and student resources. We've put our timeline here that I just described to you, and then here are all the kind of the outline for participants and objectives that I just went over in the PowerPoint. So just really quickly, when you click on team application, you'll be taken to our Qualtrics form that you'll fill out. And then if you click on, sorry, it's very hard to see with the toolbar at the top, but if you click on participant portal, you will be taken to this participant portal here. In the participant portal, we have a slideshow for students on their guidelines, the LTL program guidelines PDF, and then the judging, the rubric judging and scoring sheet, which I'll show you briefly. You'll see that we have a category, and then the judges have to kind of say how many points they've earned in each category. That will be totaled up at the end. And then just so you know, this is where our example briefing can be found. This briefing was written in English, just kind of for ease, for people to understand. We had a UNC student write one, and they wrote one called Jet Lag, the Impact of COVID-19 on Tourism in Europe. And he wrote a 1 to 1.5 page on how tourism has been hurt in the European Union due to COVID. So this is kind of an example. For example, if you have a team that was assigned Europe and they speak Chinese, they could do a project very similar to this in the Chinese language. So that is kind of, once again, like I said, everything in a nutshell. I know I kind of went through a little bit quick, but I guess I will stop now unless Emma has something she wants to add, and we will take questions.
And I think questions can come in either through the Q&A section.
We're getting questions through Q&A and chat.
Okay.
I think one of the first things we should probably do, if you could put the slide up with all the deadlines on it.
Yes.
We've got several people asking, is December 2nd the day, sort of the deadlines we should keep in mind? Is that when both the paper and the visual are due? Is it by 5 p.m.? So I know you had a slide that sort of had all that information in one place.
Yes, let me pull that back up here. So just to kind of say it again, the application deadline is the 16th, and you will know, or the students will know, and the sponsoring teacher will know on the 23rd if they were accepted. Between the 23rd and December 2nd is when they will work on the project, and the project is due, the briefing and the visual are both due by 5 p.m. on December 2nd, emailed to that Learning Through Languages email by the sponsoring teacher. And then between December 2nd and December 9th is when these projects will be judged. We will announce the scores on the 9th, and the students will receive written feedback by December 11th.
Great.
And I'd like to add too that there's such a great level of interest in learning through languages. It has significantly increased over the years, which is fantastic. And because the symposium is virtual, we anticipate and hope that it might be easier for students who live farther away to participate for the first time. And so please note that this really is an application. There's a space at the end, or as an essay question where you get to describe why the team would like to participate in learning through languages, and the benefits that your students will receive from participating in this extracurricular opportunity. And so please do complete that, and know that we can only accept a limited number of teams. And regardless, we encourage you to keep applying for your students to participate year after year. So just note that it is an application, so think carefully, as you're filling that out.
And we have a question about that. Do we fill out the essay or the students in the application?
So the sponsoring teacher is responsible for filling out the application. I can see if I can pull it up, but the teacher will fill out that essay question. Of course, they can ask the student why they want to participate and kind of take that from them, but they're the ones who have to type it into the box.
And we also have another question, a couple of questions. If one student wants to work as an individual, is that one of the sponsoring teacher's 3 teams?
Yes, each group of 1 to 3. So if it's just 1, that's still a team. If it's 3, it's a team. That counts as a team.
And we changed that this year to, as Allison mentioned, acknowledging the fact that some students are having a harder time collaborating. Learning through languages is initially designed as this collaborative group project that students get to do in their language classes or outside of school hours. But acknowledging the fact that students aren't able to meet right now, it might be challenging for them to meet online. Internet, connectivity is unreliable sometimes, and students might not be able to get together. We are allowing teams to participate as an individual. In the future, when things return to a normal, we will go back to our solid, teams of 2 to 3 are eligible to participate in the program. But yes, as Allison said, it would be considered a team of 1.
All right. We also have a question. Are you going to use Turnitin to verify that students have not plagiarized?
Great question. We will have a plagiarism statement that the students have to sign. That will be uploaded in the participant portal as well, and we'll make sure that all the teams are aware that this has to be added to the briefing. But it'll just be a statement that says we hereby certify that this hasn't been plagiarized. If the judge does have a feeling that, with world languages we've talked, it is kind of easy for the judges who read it to understand if it's been plagiarized or not, because they have an idea for what language level is acceptable in high school. So they have a pretty good thumb on that. But if we do find out the student has plagiarized, of course we will get in contact with them, and that team will be disqualified if we find out it was plagiarized.
And as Allison mentioned, yes, our faculty, so as she shared earlier, the judges are faculty at UNC and Duke, and they've read a lot of language papers, and so they will be instructed to keep an eye out for that. So in addition to the statement that the students find, of course, all of us as educators, that's something that we are aware of might be a possibility and something to consider.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for questions in both the Q&A and the chat box. We don't have any come in right now. It might be good to put up the screenshot of the website, or just to pull that up again. I know someone had asked for the website link, and so I'm going to put that in the chat box again so everyone has it. And you can go out to it and see literally what we're showing on screen right now. Maybe look around and see where some of the resources are. We've got a lot of time, so Allison and Emma, if there's anything else you want to show us or kind of go through maybe again that's accessible here, that would be a good time.
I would also just plug as well, I'll leave this page up, but as area study centers, a lot of our centers have just general K through 12 curriculum we offer to teachers, whether that be teacher development, professional development conferences, or lesson plans we have on our website. So take this time, or any time really, now that you have our area studies website, to check out our area studies centers. Because if LtL is something that maybe you don't have students participating in, or you find you can't participate in, we still have lots of opportunities for teachers throughout the year to work with our centers and to learn about the different world regions. We'll also be working with the DPI again in November for International Education Week, so please keep an eye out for that. But that's just kind of a small plug for our area study centers and the work we do.
That's a really good point, Allison. And for LTL, you'll see, on this page, it notes that eligible students include those who speak Arabic, Chinese, French, German, Italian, Japanese, Russian, or Spanish. Annually, the teams that participate are generally, or the teams who are apply to participate are generally reflective of the statewide world language enrollment. So we have a higher number of Spanish and French teams who participate, and generally a handful of Japanese and Chinese. And then on occasion, we have Arabic and Russian. So, but we'd love to see less commonly taught languages, more less commonly taught languages featured in the symposium. So if you or if any of your colleagues teach those less commonly taught languages, we highly encourage you to apply. And Allison, I will continue your plug for International Education Week. We are really excited to be collaborating with the global team at DPI, and we'll be hosting a series of webinars throughout the entire week of International Education Week, November 16th through November 20th. Each event will be in an hour and a half from 6 to 7:30 p.m. and each webinar will focus on a different world region. So, for example, one night will be focused on Europe, one night will be focused on learning about the Middle East and North Africa, one night will be focused on Africa, and each webinar will feature a fantastic presenter on our world region, giving great content and accompanied by resources for you to use in your classrooms. So even if you have colleagues who are not world language educators, we highly encourage you to put those dates on your calendar and to join us for that week. It should be a lot of fun.
All right. We have another question specifically about the competition. One person is wondering, what's the primary level of learning for the students? Example, Spanish 1, 2, 3, 4, or AP.
As we had mentioned, the symposium is really aimed for students who are able to write in that language. So we recommend it being level 3, 4, and above. AP, of course, if it's a student, that would be kind of the primary thing, is if they feel comfortable writing, their own words in that language. So that intermediate to advanced level 3, 4, 5 and above, or if they're heritage speakers.
And Allison,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, Allison, there's a slide about that if it would help to display it visually for that question.
Mm-hmm. And it is something to think about too, with our state standards for world languages that are proficiency based, we're really into, as she said, the intermediate levels of proficiency. So levels, 3, 4, 5, definitely get into things like intermediate low, intermediate mid, intermediate high, depending on which skill we're talking about and how students are progressing individually. But our goals for those courses, for proficiency outcomes, are in that intermediate range of proficiency.
Mm-hmm.
And Allison, similarly, I think if you'd like to elaborate a little bit more on the scoring and how it's changed. It used to be, if you've participated in Learning Through Languages in the past, it used to be kind of a vertical, was it lateral, Allison? I can't remember, you described this so well.
So this is another change we started last year. We're going to keep it up this year, even though we've gone fully virtual. So LTL used to be, I guess what you could call a vertical competition, where there was a winner at the end who beat kind of everyone out. But we realized with language and with different languages and different skills, multiple teams could be quote unquote winners or really good at the language without necessarily having beaten the other, which is why we switched over to this scoring style where students are still judged based on their ability. I pulled up the rubric here that I'm sharing so you can see they still get judged pretty in depth at their level, and they'll receive a score. But if they receive the highest score, for example, that doesn't mean another team can't receive that same high score. So we just wanted to make sure that students are being recognized for the level that they speak at, and that they're able to kind of celebrate language learning with everyone else. Because as we all know here, I think we all are passionate about language learning. It's really not about beating the next person. It's about getting good at it and being able to communicate.
Thanks, Allison. And as she said, we really want to celebrate. Learning Through Languages is meant to be a celebratory endeavor. And so we want your students to feel accomplished at the end, you know, proud of their work, proud of the way they've been able to be creative with the project visual. It's a great thing for them to put on their resume as they're applying to college or talk about in their college applications. And all students will receive this year a digital certificate, but something that they can add to their, you know, achievements. And we hope that they enjoy getting feedback from judges. You know, sometimes it's nice to have someone proficient in a language to provide, you know, feedback, critical feedback on your work that's not your own language teacher. So having someone affiliated with UNC or Duke, you know, past students have always really valued having feedback from outside parties.
All right. I'm also a question again about the dates. I think folks want to maybe even get a screenshot of that. So if you want to pull that slide up again.
Yes.
As I mentioned earlier on, we will post all these materials so you'll have access to them on the World Languages website, and all of the dates and the links to this web page, which has them too. Also, I have several people asking about being aware of the teacher symposiums that are coming up, or the International Education Week activities that you mentioned. And so I'm putting now for everyone in the chat box a link to sign up for our NCDPI listservs, information about things like that from all of the UNC Global Centers are shared through usually the World Language listserv if it pertains to world languages. We have both the World Language Instructors listserv as well as the World Language Education Newsletter. We also share things like that, especially about like International Education Week, so the Global Education listservs. So I put the link in the chat box for you to go and sign up your email address for any of those listservs where you could get this kind of information. And you may discover some others you're interested in, and feel free to sign up for that information. For what I do is I try to make sure that information is always available, opportunities and professional development and so forth. And I send out reminders on the listserv. Sometimes they're standalone reminders, like, for example, about today's broadcast. Sometimes they're in a newsletter format, just of things coming up to be a reminder in case you want to get involved. So do sign up for those.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. And as I mentioned, that week is November 16th through 20th. More details are forthcoming. Registration will be required, but the program is completely free, and you can earn CEUs, which will be provided by DPI. And the theme for that week is human rights and social justice around the world. So we're planning a great lineup of different speakers who will talk about that theme throughout the week.
All right, I'm looking for additional questions. I think we've answered about everything right now. You may want to talk a little bit more about some of the listservs and things like that you have through the UNC Global.
Yeah, of course. So every center runs their own programming. LtL is an example of something we do jointly, but every center has their own programming because everyone has different grants and different mandates they have to follow. But if you come over here, I'm still sharing kind of the website, and you look at, if you go to the main web page, for example, you'll see that you'll find all of our area study centers. I'll let Emma maybe talk about her center. I know my center, for example, we do have a listserv that I run. If you come to our website, you can click over here for educators, and then it is under Educator Newsletter. So we run one. Emma, I know she runs one, so I'll let her talk about that. Emma, I can go to your website too, if that would help.
Sure. You know what, Allison, I think there's also, that shared flyer. If you go to 4K through 16,
yes, that's right.
We can share. Yeah. So there are several different, you could even look at the PowerPoint slides or the flyer, but all of our different centers do offer different kinds of programming on our world region. So we have a very active listserv and a very active website with lots of different resources. We also have a couple of different professional webinars on the Middle East and North Africa scheduled throughout the fall and the spring. You can find that information on our website. But yes, you'll see that all of these centers, African Studies, Asia, Carolina Asia Center, The Center for Global Initiatives, which is really should be renamed as Carolina Navigators, and they're known for shipping out culture kits to schools. They're obviously not shipping physical kits this year, but they are providing a lot of digital resources on countries around the world. The Center for Slavic, Eurasian, and East European Studies, our program on Middle East Studies, and then the program in Latin American and Caribbean Studies. So we all have a host of resources. All of our programming varies slightly depending on how we've structured our programs for educators, but we all offer really great and valuable resources. And you can find information about all of our centers based off of this one home website. We are also all, in addition to programs specifically for educators, we're offering all of our public programming has moved online as well, which is kind of a benefit. You're able to join if you have a particular interest in any of our world regions or staying up to date on current world affairs. You can join any of our programs online. Most have some kind of registration, but all of that information is available. For example, we're doing a program this week on war and COVID-19 in Yemen in particular, and we welcome all members of the public to register for that program.
All right, we have a specific question. Do the Global Area Studies Centers offer grants for teachers to study abroad?
So we have, it's center by center. Everyone does it differently. I can say for the Center for European Studies, we do a Brussels study tour every summer. So that is a funded trip to Brussels to get to know the EU institutions. We cover a flight reimbursement and hotel costs for that trip. So that's something we offer. And I think maybe some of the other studies, the other centers do trips sometimes.
Yeah, as Allison shared, it is really a case-by-case basis. None of the other centers have, I think, a consistent grant funding for educators to travel abroad. We do take teachers to the Middle East and North Africa. We were supposed to go to Jordan in July, and that's being indefinitely postponed. We work with a company, or actually it's a nonprofit organization, Global Exploration for Educators organization, GEO, and they provide subsidized travel. So while we're not able to provide grants necessarily, we are able to work with organizations that provide subsidized travel for educators focused on their nonprofit status. There are other centers who do special projects abroad. So I know the Africa Studies Center was planning on a funded trip to Malawi this year, which unfortunately was canceled due to COVID-19. But it really is kind of a case-by-case. Travel opportunities tend to be more infrequent, but also special. And that's not something that we have an abundance of funding for. But if you have questions and you're interested in traveling to a particular region, we often have connections with other organizations who maybe that's their primary grant, that's the focus of their granting. So we might be able to point you in the direction of other sources of funding if we're not able to provide funding ourselves. A lot of our programs are free of charge to educators. We want to thank you and we appreciate you and we applaud you for the amazing work that you're doing in your classrooms and in your virtual classrooms as yourselves, as your Bitmoji teachers. We just, we know that this is a stressful time for educators, and we do all that we can to provide global education resources focused on our different world regions. So the programs we run are free. And then, yes, travel to the region is a little bit trickier to find funding for, but we're always happy to help if there's a trip you're really interested in going on, to help you brainstorm other places where you might be able to get funding.
Yeah, and that's a good time too to remind everyone that, like they said, they usually have newsletters and listservs to sign up for to get information about whatever opportunities are available. We do also run those through the NCDPI Global Education Listservs and any other listserv. So if there's something in particular for world language teachers or social studies teachers or anything like that, we make sure the information gets out sort of in multiple outlets. And so we'd encourage you to sign up for all of those listservs so that you're sure to get that information when those opportunities become available. And there are many other opportunities too. Some of you might have been aware of some of the things that have been out recently on the listserv. There's a study group that's going to be looking at Haiti and that part of the world. There was also this past calendar year an E-United Fellows program where teachers were selected and did some development together and developed lesson plans and so forth. And so, Allison, Emma, you might want to talk about those opportunities or others that are coming up that you're very familiar with.
Yeah, just like Emma was saying, we just have a lot of opportunities for teachers amongst the centers. It really just depends on year by year. Check our calendars all the time. We're all doing events. Everything's fully virtual. So we're very accessible right now, which is kind of the silver lining of COVID. We got grant funding from the EU for 2 years to do this United Teacher Fellows program. So if you're interested in adding European Union, so contemporary European studies into your curriculum more, I invite you to check out our website for that. If you go to our center, you'll find it on my Teach tab, for Teachers tab, or for educators. It's just an 8-month fellowship program starting in January for teachers to incorporate that curriculum. I know the Middle East and Africa also do a fellows program, so I'll toss it over to Emma to talk about that.
Yeah, we also run an annual fellows program. This one is it's a collaboration of the Middle East and African Study Centers, and it's focused on Middle East and African cultures. The program is focused on providing more content on the Middle East and Africa, but then specifically making connections to North Carolina, which is really exciting. It's designed as an experiential education learning opportunity. And so we, in traditional years, visit sites around North Carolina that have some kind of connection to the Middle East or Africa. So we're making these regions real for our students, not just over there, but communities that are an important part of North Carolina's cultural fabric. And that program has also moved virtually, but we have 15 wonderful fellows and hope to offer the program in the next couple of years. Our center also has launched a virtual exchange program. This might be of particular interest to you all as world language educators, even if there are Arabic instructors or not on the call, but we have started a virtual exchange program between teachers in the United States and teachers in the Middle East and North Africa. So it's called the Teachers Collaborating Across Borders Program, TCAB. And this is our first year that we've launched this program. It is by application process. And so we have a cohort of 30 teachers who are participating in TCAB. And this is something that we'll also offer annually. So in the program, teachers meet in the fall for virtual exchange and learn about each other's school systems and cultures. And then in the spring, they conduct an exchange between their students. So there's an opportunity for teachers to first model and understand virtual exchange before they get to do some kind of collaborative project between classrooms. So that's something that we're really excited about. And that was planned pre-COVID and now becomes even more important as our world has shrunk and we're all online, and as it's so important to maintain connections with people right now. So.
Yeah, and you've got some people who are replying they're very interested in the TCAB you were just talking about and connecting with other teachers. We also got someone who said they had just got their acceptance into the Haiti Fellows program that we mentioned a moment ago. So congratulations.
Mabruk, congratulations. It's exciting. Yes, that program is run by our colleague, Corinne Zaragoza Estrella in the UNC Duke Consortium in Latin American and Caribbean Studies. Several of our centers have really, really, really long titles, so feel free to use acronyms. But yes, that's a very exciting program. So congratulations. It's exciting to have you as part of that program. Allison, is there anything else you can think of that you'd like to share about this year's Learning Through Languages format?
I think we really hit the high points. I would like to encourage anyone, if you have any questions at all, feel free to email us. If something comes up later, or you have a question about something, we are trying pretty hard to be responsive about this. We know it's kind of a confusing and weird year, and we want to be there for you guys. So please just email us if you get off this webinar and think, what did any of that mean? We are here for you. Our emails are posted on the website, and they were in the informational slide at the beginning of this webinar that Anne-Marie had showed. I think the other thing is, we're also kind of flexible this year. So if you have any questions or, something's going on with your teams or something happens, just let us know. Maybe you apply to do it and you can't do it later. We're flexible this year, and we're here for y'all, and we know that it's just a weird time for everyone. So we're trying to have a lot of empathy for that. And as centers, if there's anything we can do for you guys too, I know we always say that on the European side, but if there's something we can help you with in your classroom, and I know Emma feels the same, just let us know how we can help.
Yeah, we're really excited that we've been able to adapt the program model, and again, to provide your students with this extracurricular additional language learning opportunity where they get to flex their writing muscles, be creative, and maybe work on a team, maybe not. We're really excited that the project visual this year, we've come up with 3 virtual formats, the PowerPoint, an infographic, or website, and all of those help cultivate digital literacy skills. And so we're really excited to see what your students create and come up with. Versus in the past, students have been able to do physical projects, but we're excited to see the digital creativity that they're going to be able to express.
So we have a couple of questions. One person wanted to know if you could share the link to the website about the TCAB program. And then another person wants to ask specifically about LtL. So can you talk a little about where the web link is for the TCAB? Can you maybe show it, or is it someplace linked up yet? Or
I can put it in the chat, I think. Yes, okay. I will put it in the chat to everyone in a moment. As I mentioned, we are currently in our first cohort, so they're already having their virtual exchange and conversations, but we'll be opening up the second round of applications in spring 2021. This coming spring, applications will reopen. And then in the summer, teachers it's very minimal summer work. You just get to know each other on our online kind of portal introductions, and then the conversations start beginning in September. So I will put that link in the chat in just a moment.
Okay. And we may want to go back to the slide with all of the dates for the LtL competition for this next question. Oh, there it is. Someone wants to know, once we apply for the teams, after we get accepted, then will they get the regions assigned for the teams then? So how soon basically will they know which region?
Yes, so the notification of acceptance will have all the information they need for the project. So in that notification, they'll find out if they got in or not, what their world region is, and then we will reiterate to them, because they get to choose the application, topic 1, 2, or 3. So whether that's the social justice, the COVID, or the environmental one, we'll say, hey, you chose this topic. This is the world region we assigned you to write on, and you're accepted. Please turn everything in by the 2nd. That notification of acceptance will have all the information you need.
And I think I just successfully put the link to the TCAB program in the chat. So do share, click on that, share it. And again, if you have colleagues who weren't able to join today, we encourage you to share this information with them. We welcome anyone to apply. We also should note that the sponsoring teacher doesn't necessarily have to be a world language teacher. It's certainly easier because you're able to provide resources for students in the language of study. But if there's a really enthusiastic media specialist or even social studies educator who wants to work with you on this, or who wants, they teach at a school where the language teacher isn't able to participate, the sponsoring teacher can be a teacher of another subject.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, I'm looking. Oh, there is a question too. Are teachers not allowed to proofread papers?
Emma, I'll pass this one over to you. That's a great question. Yeah, it's hard to know what is the difference between supporting your students, providing them with resources, talking with them about the structure of the paper, but the paper itself should be the student's own words. And so we ask that you don't go through and edit, that you can proofread for content, but we ask you, if your students are making minimal errors in the language, we ask that you don't go through and fix conjugations or noun, gender, adjective agreements, that you really let it be the student's own writing. And I know as a language teacher, it might be hard for you to let them submit something that's not 100% perfect, but that's why our judges will be providing feedback as well. So we encourage teachers to provide their students with sources in the target language so that, they can fulfill their source requirement of using 2 sources in the target language. That you talk about big picture ideas and structure. Did they leave out a glaring detail as they're writing, rambling? So that we welcome you to provide that kind of feedback, but don't nitpick and edit their writing. Let it be theirs. And this is a learning opportunity so that when the judges look at it, they can also provide that feedback.
All right. Well, looks like we're right on time, so I'm going to go ahead and take our controls back and wrap us up. Again, I'll post all of these materials, so no worries there. Let's see. Let me click back over. Ah, there we go. To the screen. So as we've been saying, you can always connect with Emma and Allison about the LTL using their contact information here on their slide. You've got the link to their website, so that information is posted there too. We do want to thank them for joining us today. It was great to hear about this competition and all of the opportunities that are available through the UNC Global Studies Center. So thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you everyone for coming.
Thanks so much for having us.
And then for our wrap up, I just wanted to remind everyone the archives from this broadcast will be posted on our webinar series information page within the next week. That includes this recording, the slides in the 3 different formats, and any handouts and links that we've shared. Also, if you're looking for your certificate, remember, once you participate actively in our NCDPI World Language webinar, you will get that contact hour on the certificate attached to an email approximately 2 weeks from today. Might get there a little earlier, but I always want to give that 2-week guarantee, so look for it in your email. Remember, local education agencies or districts and charter schools must get approval for professional development hours. So some districts and schools have a very structured process for that, and some do not. So be sure and check locally what you need. And this is my information and the information about our NCDPI World Languages website at bit.ly/NCDPIWL. And got my contact information if you need to contact me via email or phone. And then there's just a screenshot of where things are posted on the World Languages website under that professional development tab on the webinar series information page. That's it for today. We thank everyone for joining us. We're sure it's been a busy Monday for you, and we hope you got some information that you can use in your work with students and in your work as a professional in growing and learning more about the opportunities that are available, even here in our state through UNC Global.